Hi all. Today we will see education as pedagogic science. So you are familiar with the term pedagogy. So the origin of the term pedagogy as a pedagogue, who the person accompany a learner to a school or some place of learning. It's a word from Greek origin, and it also mentioned at some places as an elder peer or an elder leader who leads the learner to develop logic according to Socrates and all at that time. And according to some dictionary meanings, according to Webster, pedagogy is an art, science, or profession of teaching. And it is methods and activities of teaching by Cambridge Dictionary, and theory, methods, and principles of teaching, according to Collins. So these are some dictionary meaning of pedagogy. So in any case, pedagogy deals with the procedure of teaching, the methodology of teaching, the principles behind teaching, how a teacher act in the class, and it shall be according to the nature of the learner, nature of subject, the socio-cultural context, etc. So the two major dimensions in pedagogy shall be a teacher-centered or a teacher-oriented, and a learner-centered or learner-oriented. Because the act of teaching, the methods of teaching, whether it gave emphasis to a teacher-directed or a teacher-dominant pedagogy or a learner-oriented or a learner-dominant pedagogy. And there are two other dimensions or two other aspects of pedagogy, such as a low-tech or high-tech, a low-tech pedagogy or high-tech pedagogy. Whether in a teacher-centered or learner-centered or a teacher-oriented or learner-oriented approach to pedagogy, whether the teaching is with low tech, means use of minimum technology in teaching, in so that kind of pedagogy, that's a low tech pedagogy, because in such teaching the teacher is relied more on lectures or some oral methods only. And a high-tech pedagogy means maximum input for technology. Different kinds of technology can be used, such as different learning platforms such as Google Classroom or Moodle. Such platforms can be used. Videos can be used. Text can be used. Google Forms can be used. Or G Suite can be used. Different social media can be incorporated. So there shall be a maximum input of technology. So in which category this our particular pedagogy belong, that decides whether it is a high tech when we include maximum technology in the pedagogy, and if it is minimum like lecturing only, then it is a low tech pedagogy. So that's about the term pedagogy. That's the methods, principles, or art, science of teaching. Anyway, it's with when. So let us examine what's the difference between the teacher-centered or teacher-oriented and student-centered or student-oriented pedagogy. If the pedagogy is teacher-centered, what happens in the classes is teacher is the provider of knowledge. So there will be direct instruction. Teacher lecturing. Learners are supposed to attend the lectures. They are pretend to listen the lecture. They are taking notes on what the teacher is describing or narrating or lecturing, whatever it is. So whatever the teacher has given, that shall be received by the learners. So that's the importance of this learner, teacher centered or teacher oriented, teacher dominated pedagogy, whether teacher is all in all. In our system, in Indian system, we can see it's still the teacher is the dominant figure. We are always learners, as learners, we are always expecting something to get from teachers. And regarding assessment, the learner has to provide what the teacher knows. That's the reality. Because the teacher instruct what she or he knows to students. And students supposed to acquire those knowledge that the teacher knows. So in assessment, actually, the knowledge of the teacher, how it is acquired by the learner is reproduced. So in a student-oriented or a student-centered pedagogical approach, the student to be an active participant in their own learning. Teacher is not the provider, but teacher is the director or stage setter. We can call it as a mentor. It's a suitable term for the role of teacher or coaching. The mentor shall be a better term for a teacher in a student-oriented pedagogy. So teacher provide necessary support, necessary help, some ideas you can do this way. This can be, these and these are the ways you can try this out, and these are the problems if they are asking for some help and all. And the assessment in a learner-oriented pedagogy shall be frequent or continuous, not as a term end or a semester end or year end long written assessment. On the contrary, because the learner as an active participant in the process, so learner have to proceed through continuous assessment, because in that approach the learner have to clarify his own doubts, then only she can proceed or he can proceed for further. So that point is the point of assessment, or not the point of that memory based written examinations. So that assessment can be frequent, and it shall be gained by own experiences and own requirements, and it shall be directed more on what the learner knows, not the teacher actually teaches, or not the knowledge of the teacher. Then our question is whether education is a pedagogical science. So that's the question. So let us critically examine education. Education itself can be a pedagogical science or not, whether it qualifies for that. That's our question. So education has as a discipline, that's our question, not the general term education. Education as a discipline, whether it is a pedagogic science or not. So education has a specific methodology for teaching and learning. So that's the first criterion. a specific methodology for teaching. Pedagogy is the methods and principles of teaching, and the discipline of education has specific methodology of teaching as well as specific methodology for learning as well. And there are specific teaching strategies, a wide variety of teaching strategies proposed by the discipline of education. And there shall be learning strategies also proposed by education for different types of learners, learners having different learning style, different abilities in learning, different skills in learning, specific capacities, difference in capacities, all these things. So there are different teaching and learning strategies in the discipline of education, and there shall be provision for individualized teaching and learning. The strategies also and methods also, techniques are there for individualizing teaching as well as individual or independent learning. Then there are a variety of tools, specific tools and techniques for assessment in the discipline of education. A wide variety of tools and techniques. Then there shall be provision for feedback and reinforcement. That also is a very essential, because assessment shall be followed by immediate feedback, and there shall be reinforcement, there shall be motivation. So all these things are, all these principles, all these aspects are there in the discipline of education. A specific methodology, specific strategies, scope for individualization, specific techniques and tools for assessment, provision for feedback, etc. So in addition to these, there are certain pedagogical principles. So what are the pedagogical principles that are inherent in education? Let us see one by one. Metacognition. You might have heard about the term metacognition. Means the thinking about thinking. How to cognize the learners. So how to make them learn. How they can learn this particular thing. So that's that kind of thinking. So on the basis of the level of the learner, background of the learner, culture of the learner, age, all these things, the cognitive stage of the learner, how the learner learns these things. So what shall be their thinking? So only on the basis of the thinking level of the learner, a teacher shall enable them to learn, or teacher shall teach something to them. And nowadays the term teaching get gradually disappearing from education system, and more prominence for the term learning, not for the term but for the concept. So because it is understood that it is not teaching but the learning is important, then only the learner develops. So that metacognition, that's the first pedagogical principle. How the learner learns, how the learner thinks. So that's just thinking about their thinking, learners thinking, how they will study. So then only we can, as a teacher, we can intervene in the process properly. Then content analysis, analysis of content. What shall be the content, whether the content is significant or not. So when we are taking content about some disease and all, contagious diseases, we shall include so many details regarding this case, this disease is reported in this particular year, and these are the persons, identify the scientific name of the disease is like this. All these things are there. And some significant aspect may be missing, such as how these infection shall be prevented properly, how we can identify this particular disease easily. So such kind of significant aspect shall be there in the content. and such content shall be included, and the content shall be analyzed properly to identify the concepts in that content. So that's the purpose of content analysis that shall be done in education. Metacognition also is done in education. Then analysis of attributes. Attributes are essential as well as non-essential attributes. You might have heard about those terms in concept attainment. So that essential features, all that features of an object, a phenomena, or a situation, that's an attribute. So analysis of attributes. In content analysis, what we did was we identify the concepts in the particular topic, and once we identify the concepts, what are the essential features of the concepts? For example, mango is a fruit. So a concept about that fruit. So what are the essential features of a fruit? Is the color, or its smell, or its taste, or its shape? So there are different elements, different features which are essential, and as well as there are some non-essential attributes as well. So what are the essential attributes to learn a fruit as a mango? So that we shall to analyze. So that shall be done in education. So analysis of essential attributes. Once all the essential attributes are acquired properly, then only we will acquire that concepts. Then exemplar planning, that's another principle, planning of examples. Example shall be appropriate. It shall be familiar from the experience or the culture of learners. That shall be very important, because an example from other part of the world which may be not familiar for a learner, so it will be difficult for them to understand the concept properly. So there shall be planning of examples, illustrations, and mediator planning, planning of which medium or media, more than one medium, whether it shall be a lecture, whether it shall be a text, whether it shall be a picture, a video, or a actual object. So what kind of media that we have to select or incorporated, that shall be uh, identified. And the anticipation of errors and preventive measures. So that's the final principle, pedagogical principle. And in while learning, there shall be every possibility of getting errors, conceptual errors can happen, and we have to anticipate such errors. As teachers, our duty is to anticipate those probable errors. There shall be some points, there shall be some particular uh, points in the topic uh, where the learner can happen, that conceptual error may occur. So we have to anticipate that errors and take some preventive steps to prevent that conceptual error. So these are the pedagogical principles: metacognition, content analysis, analysis of attributes, exemplar planning, mediator planning, and anticipation of errors and preventive measures. So when we examine a discipline of education, or education as a discipline, so we can see that all these principles are followed in the discipline of education. So undoubtedly, we can say that or state that education as a pedagogical science. So it's very systematic. It has got specific steps, specific teaching, learning, assessment, procedure, tools, techniques, etc. So education is a pedagogical science. So thanks for watching the presentation. Thank you all.